In this video, I'll demonstrate how to graph quadratic functions written in intercept form. The formula for graphing a quadratic in intercept form, the general formula is going to be y equals a x minus p x minus q. It's called intercept form because this tells us the x-intercepts for the quadratic function. In order to determine the axis of symmetry, is going to be x equal the average of p and q. This is similar to vertex form because our p values and q values, when we're looking at what p actually is and q actually is, it's the opposite of what's in our equation. So for example, if we have x plus 3, x minus 2, p is going to equal negative 3, q would equal positive 2. So keep that in mind as we're working through these. All right. So once we have that axis of symmetry, that'll give us the x coordinate of the vertex, and to find the y coordinate, we just substitute it into the original equation. And to get our y-intercept in intercept form, you just substitute in 0 for the x value to get the y value. So let's do an example. Okay. The first thing to identify is a, p, and q. So in this problem, the a value is going to be 1. P, remember, it's the opposite, so instead of negative 1, it's positive 1. Q is going to be negative 1. All right. So P and Q are your x-intercepts. So you can go ahead and actually plot those on the graph. So I know it's going to cross the graph at positive 1 and negative 1 on the x-axis. Next thing is to determine if the graph is going to open up or down. Well, the a value is positive, so the graph is going to open up. Now, to find your axis of symmetry, remember, it's the average of P and Q. So it's P plus Q, so 1 plus negative 1 divided by 2, which is 0 divided by 2, which equals 0. So your axis of symmetry is going to be the line x equals 0, so this happens to be our y-axis. And it's also the x-coordinate of the vertex. So what I'm going to do now to find the y-coordinate of the vertex is plug in the x-coordinate. So that's going to be 0 minus 1 times 0 plus 1. So that's negative 1 times positive 1, which equals negative 1. So the coordinates of the vertex will be the coordinate 0, negative 1. Because the a value is positive and the graph opens up, we know we have a minimum. All right. This time, your y-intercept and your vertex happen to be the same point. So we found out earlier that it's the point 0, negative 1. And just like before, we can use our graphing calculator to help us find other points on the graph. So when we want to use our vertex point, so that's the point 0, negative 1. We know our y-intercepts, and I'm just going to pick 2 more points, and we know our x-intercepts. So when it's negative 2, we're up here at positive 3, and when it's at positive 2, we're at positive 3. And we graph the parabola. Let's try another one. Going to identify a, p, and q. So a is negative 1. Remember, p is the opposite of what's in the equation, and q is the opposite. So remember, p and q tell you your x-intercepts. So we know the graph crosses at 2, and we know it crosses at negative 3. Because the a value is negative, we know the graph opens down. Now let's calculate the axis of symmetry. So we do p plus q divided by 2. So 2 plus negative 3 divided by 2. So that's negative 1 over 2. So our axis of symmetry is actually going to be negative 1/2. So we're going to be in between here. That's also the x-coordinate of your vertex. So we're going to take this negative 1/2 and substitute it in to get our y value. So I have a negative parentheses, negative 1/2 minus 2 times negative 1/2 plus 3. All right. So when you substitute that in, you'll find that that's actually about 6.25 for the y-coordinate of the vertex. So our vertex point is negative 1/2, comma, 6.25. So I'll go ahead and graph that point. So it's about here. We already know because it's going to be opening down, we'll have a maximum point. Your y-intercept is when your x value is 0. So if you put in 0 into the equation, that's 0 minus 2, 0 plus 3. So that's a negative 2 times 3, which is going to be 6. So our y-intercept is the point 0, 6. Okay. So when x is 0, y is 6. Okay. So let's get a few more points. When it's negative 1, it's at 6, so these kind of are close together. When it's at negative 2, we're at 4. When it's at 1, it's at 4. So we connect those points, connect those points. Okay. Next one I want to show you, this one is a little different. We know A here is 1, that's understood, but this time we don't have those two sets of parentheses, we just have an x, then we have an x minus 3. So in actuality, this is x minus 0 times x minus 3. Okay, so our p value here is going to be 0. Our q value is going to be 3. So we know the graph is going to open up because the a is positive. Axis of symmetry, this time we only have 0 plus negative 3. Plus 3, I'm sorry, not negative 3, plus positive 3. Divided by 2, so that's 3/2, or 1.5. So we substitute that into our equation to get our vertex, okay? So I'll leave that one to you to graph. We know it's going to be a maximum, a minimum, and we're going to substitute in 0 to get that y-intercept. So you graph this one, and I'm going to go on to the next one. There's 2 practice questions in here, this one and the next one on your paper for your notes. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to change an equation from intercept form to standard form. So, first step, you're going to multiply what's in the parentheses together. So, x times x is x squared. That's negative 5x. Then we're going to do 3 in the x, so that's 3x. 3 times 5 is negative 15. So that's going to be 1/2 times x squared minus 2x minus 15, which equals x squared over 2, or 1/2 x squared, minus 1x minus 15 over 2. It's in standard form. We're going to do this example. So we're going to have y equals, multiply here, x times 2x is 2x squared, x times 1 is 1x, negative 5 times 2 is going to be negative 10x, and negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. So that gives us 2x squared minus 9x minus 5. But remember, there is a negative in front of all of this. So we have to distribute the negative sign, so that'll change the sign on all our numbers. So our final answer is y equals negative 2x squared plus 9x plus 5. Okay. This is a short lesson on intercept form. Remember, the notes is provided below. Thank you for watching.